to the New Testament. So growing up, my belief in God never basically went unchecked. I never scrutinized. I never thought to question the existence of God. And even in college, I remember journaling. And some of my journal entries would begin, "Dear God."
Really?
Yes, but it was it was always followed by something like, "Please let me meet Jennifer Love Hewitt," or just like it was some sort of wish fulfillment. But yeah, I did when I would journal. It would sometimes be me journaling to God. But I would say I started questioning things a little bit in high school, especially when it came to evolution. I think it was my senior year in high school, I took a course called Human Behavior with Mr. Lee Anderson, who he's one of those teachers that you would nominate for Teacher of the Year. He was an awesome teacher. I don't know if he still teaches at De La Salle High School in Minneapolis, but if he does, you rock, you're amazing. But one of the textbooks he assigned in that class, in the Human Behavior class, was called The Third Chimpanzee by Jared Diamond. Actually, after I graduated, I went and bought that book. I actually bought a textbook because it was so enriching. Wow. It was basically just all about the development of the human species and how we really are derived from our ape ancestors and how we share 98% the same DNA with chimpanzees. I mean, it's just a fact that you simply cannot ignore. And I was mulling over this, like, how can we possibly share 98% DNA with a chimpanzee? And I was thinking about the lineage of the human species through time, because it goes completely contradictory to what you're taught, especially in the Catholic faith. But I would say the nail in the coffin, so to speak, was in college. It was a 400 level theology course called Science and Christian Theology. And that was taught by, who's our professor? Dr. Terry Nichols. And I know, Dr. Nichols, if you're still out there, this was not your intention, but you, sir, you set me free.
Oh no.
Yeah. And to a lesser degree, you mentioned philosophy. I would actually agree. My philosophy courses totally helped encourage reason and logic and brought a lot of different things to light. Understanding forms of argument like modus ponens and modus tollens, things like if P then Q, P therefore Q. So when religious believers I would listen to the arguments of religious believers, like, if there is morality, God exists. Well, we have morality, therefore God exists. And I learned, if you don't have an educational background, that sounds like a totally valid argument. You wouldn't question it. But it's called affirming the consequence. It's a formal fallacy. And the reason it's a fallacy is because there's an underlying assumption that the premise is true, but the premise is not true. It's invalid. You have to assume that if there's morality, God exists. So first and foremost, the premise itself is false. So anyway, back to theology. We explored a lot of the credibility between miracles and existence and creation from both the biblical and the scientific perspectives. And miracles was actually a big clincher for me. I thought a lot about the stories of purported miracles and realized how fictitious the conclusions of the stories were. People surviving car crashes in which ultimate doom was the only outcome, or beating the odds of some incurable disease in which doctors gave like a 1% survival rate. These are not miracles. These are just calculated odds. These are coincidence. And yet people want to assert that miracles prove the existence of God. A lot of people, I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people do. They hang on to the belief that miracles prove the existence of God. So with that logic alone, using their logic, let's give a scenario. If one does survive a car crash, but 3 other passengers die in that same car crash, by their own logic, if miracles prove God exists, then the fact that the others died would disprove God exists. Because if miracles prove God exists, then non-miracles would disprove that God exists.
See, and this is where
Of course, their stories would change. Well, then it's God's will.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's God's will. Well, you know what? If God is so fickle-minded, then things like prayer become absolutely unnecessary because God is going to do what God wants to do regardless of prayer. If God can save someone's life, why not restore eyesight? Why not regrow a limb? Why is it always the miracles are just about survival and nothing else? Is God just impotent in these areas? Does he not care? Is it only life or death with God?
The funny thing is my dad has seen lots of medical miracles that they call them in their community.
Yes.
Things where things shouldn't have been, and sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine, but you can't then assert that it was the hand of God intervening. Look, the human body in and of itself is a pretty remarkable piece of machinery, and things do happen. That we have odds. We have odds for that reason. So anyway, miracles do not prove the existence of God. That was part of what I was thinking about.
A quick question for you, though. Is there any miracle that you would say, okay, God obviously does exist. Is there anything that would happen that would cause you to say this is a miracle?
It would literally have to be the sky opening up or something of that nature and God speaking out.
Are you serious? That
Yes.
is short of that.
Short of that, nothing, no
writing.
miracle. No. Okay, if a veteran of war had his arms blown off by a landmine and suddenly they regrew, that might get me to start thinking.
Wouldn't that cause you to say that the marvelous body?
No, that would be
So something that science
because that's
doesn't-
literally a
Wait,
biological. Yes.
That's something that science couldn't explain.
No, not even necessarily that. Because there's a lot of things that science can't explain. The difference is science doesn't have the arrogance to say that they have the answers. Religion and believers do.
Oh, I never claim that I have all the answers.
Okay, but religious believers do. It's called it's God of the gaps. Where there's it's called God of the gaps. Where there's a gap in our ignorance of where we don't know something, God is inserted. We don't know what happened.
I feel like you group in all religious people into the same category. There are several different types of religious people. Those who just accept and take everything that they're told and don't question. Those who, are just
Sarah?
Religious. What?
Did I debate you?
No.
Okay.
Dang it, this is really hard.
I was more than courteous.
Okay, we'll have to talk about that one later.
Okay.
How did you keep quiet the whole time I was talking?
It's very challenging.
That's all we do is debate.
Yeah, it was very challenging.
You take that away, we have nothing. Oh, this is just okay, I'm going to be pleasant and calm and just listen.
Okay. Anyway, so all of the miracle stuff I thought a lot about. And I was also approached by people who would say things like, well, what about Pascal's wager? Where basically Pascal said, you have nothing to lose if you believe in God. Because as long as you believe, if it turns out God does exist, well, then you win. You're in God's favor because you believed. And if he doesn't exist, well, you lost nothing in life by believing in him. So why not believe? It's basically you're hedging your bets, so to speak.
Yes.
Well, if that's the case, then who's to say that maybe Islam isn't correct? So you have nothing to lose by converting to Islam, so why not become a Muslim? Or why not believe in any of the thousands of gods that have existed over time? There's been no proof given for their demise, so why not believe in them all? I mean, why is believing in one of the gods better than believing in 100? Or believing in one better than believing in none? I honestly think the God that is currently in fashion will likely, based on human experience, be just relegated to the realm of mythology like every other god. Because, like it or not, belief in God is completely arbitrary. If you were born in a different time or place, the likelihood is you would believe in a different God.
But you would believe in some God.
But you would believe in a different God.
Yes, but in some form of a higher being.
But do you understand
the
arbitrariness of it? If you were born
in
ancient Greece, you would believe in Zeus. If you were born in ancient Egypt, you would believe in Ra. It wasn't until a few years ago that I discovered there was this thing called atheist literature. I had no idea. I had no idea that there were non-believers out there who were writing books. And it started with this book called God is Not Great by Christopher Hitchens. And I realized I was not so isolated in my beliefs, that a lot of people out there shared my sentiments, because it's very scary to be an atheist specifically in this country, which is so dominatingly religious.
Yes.
And seeing that others shared my beliefs, I didn't have to feel quarantined in the U.S., where God has essentially permeated every aspect of our lives, from politics to currency, really making it a divided nation if you don't believe in God. So with these authors, I finally felt safe. And besides Christopher Hitchens, I started reading Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins, Daniel Dennett, Carl Sagan, Bertrand Russell, and the list goes on. I felt really empowered to have these intellectual titans on my side because these guys are brilliant. And reading them really opened my eyes to even more absurdities and inconsistencies about God and religion. And you've read the likes of Sam Harris, and you've seen some of the debates in which these others were involved. You can attest to the fact that these guys are very, very smart, very well educated, and have sound arguments that are very difficult to refute.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want to debate them.
You even think Sam Harris is pretty good looking for an atheist.
I think you said that, and I just agreed.
I don't know. I think you thought it, and I just brought it to the surface.
Yes, for an atheist.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, I started reading all of these atheist texts and thought even more about the absurdities of God and religion, and how really religion has had thousands of years, literally thousands of years, to substantiate any of the claims it makes, especially concerning the existence of God, the big one. But it has taken science literally just a few hundred years to unlock a myriad mysteries of the universe. Literally just a fraction of the time that religions had to prove anything. In fact, there was a great experiment in the 1950s that is pretty well known, where scientists, I don't remember where, scientists, they combined things like methane and ammonia and several other toxic chemicals, put it into a beaker or a flask of some kind. They added a small electric current to this bubbling brew, and about a week later, amino acids began forming, which are they're the precursors to proteins, which are the building blocks of life, which showed that life can spontaneously form. No God is necessary. And in fact, adding God to the mix actually creates more problems than it solves because it makes them unnecessarily complex when you add God. The universe functions just fine without God. So thinking about all these things, I still had this nagging thought, though, that science has proven so much and has taken so much away from religion. And if we still know all these things, why does God still continue to exist in the minds of people? And as far as I can tell, some of the biggest things are, I would say, we can narrow it down to two main things. One is a fear of death.
Yes.
That will always be the big one, is the fear of death, because it's the one unknown we can never know. Science can't know. Religion cannot possibly know, even though they think they know. So that will always remain a mystery.
What about near-death experiences?
We can talk about that another time.
Okay.
There are scientific explanations for that.
I look forward to it.
But also, we feel like we have to have some control over our lives. We need to have purpose. It's just an overarching feeling that we have. We have to have some control of our lives, which is, a side note, why astrologers and fortune tellers are so popular. Why people read their horoscopes daily, because they want to feel like they have some control over what's going to happen in their life. And another thing I wanted to address is this, the emotional side. People who say they know God exists because they feel it. They feel like they just know in the very bones. And I never felt...
I love that when people always say in the every fiber of my being.
I feel God. I never felt that growing up. Even though I was very religious, I never felt like... My belief system was basically, I just was told God existed and I took it for granted. I just believed it. I never questioned it. I was never one of these people who was overly zealous about his belief, and I never really felt God's presence. I just believed God existed. I had no reason to doubt it, I guess.
Huh. Interesting.
But then you realize that, as you brought up, emotions run our lives. And it's simple to prove that people who say they feel God, they've had some sort of emotional experience that has told them God exists, that it doesn't mean anything. Because all you have to do is just show that, look, if you received a call that your brother died in a car crash, you would be absolutely devastated. You'd be in hysterics. Now, let's say you received another call 15 minutes later saying, hey, sorry, false alarm. He's totally fine. It was someone else. He was asleep in bed. Wrong guy. Well, what you experienced was real. Your emotions were completely real. Crying, your hysterics. But they proved nothing about external reality. You felt your brother's death. It proved nothing about what actually occurred. So these emotional experiences people have, they do not substantiate the existence of God or any supernatural being. At all. You can't use that as a basis to prove the existence of an invisible being, your emotions. So I have to talk for a minute about the Bible.
This is gonna be
I know
fun.
belief in God and belief in religion, they're kind of two separate things, but they are intricately linked, because without religion, you wouldn't have God.
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel like if you can disprove even one item in the Bible or the Quran or whatever book is your book of faith, then the entire faith begins to crumble and